This is my conclusion to the first American Revolution book. Let me read his epilogue to you. Why the story has not been told. Typically, a revolution lives on in memory. Not so with this one. How strange that Shays' rebellion, which failed, had received so much scholarly attention, while the 1774 overthrow of the government which succeeded had been so neglected. This oversight gives cause to wonder. How can an event with such monumental consequences have been overlooked? The reasons, and there are several, thoroughly interrelated, all lie in the grammar of popular historical narratives. The telling of history cries out for individual protagonists. If an isolated hero or leader doesn't emerge naturally, we try to invent one. In this case, however, none could be conjured. There was no one person, nor even a small group, who could have made the Revolution of 1774 any more or less than it was. This revolution was conducted by and for the participants, giving it both power and legitimacy. The anonymous character of the revolution was hardly an accident. The numerous committee appointed to perform specified and circumscribed tasks were never empowered to make final decisions or take decisive actions. They always had to report back to the people. When Timothy Paine and Thomas Oliver were forced to resign, radical crowds overruled the moderate, ad hoc representatives. At the closing of the courts in Worcester, runners were dispatched to poll the various militia units in order to ensure that all actions received the endorsement of the entire assembly. With all actions taken by the body of the people, there could be no tales of individual heroism so pervasive in popular history. The success of these revolutionaries in establishing a truly democratic movement has helped ensure their anonymity. Nathan Baldwin, Joseph Henshaw, Ephraim Doolittle, these are not household names. In 1861, the Daughters of the American Revolution from Worcester, now headquartered in the former house of the Tory Timothy Paine, built a monument in honor of Timothy Bigelow, and the local chapter took on his name. But his fame, such as it is, did not spread far, and not much is really known about him. He left no diary, no memoir, and only a handful of letters. We have his vital statistics, his military record, the minutes of various meetings, some mortgage records, and a few words from the local folklore. That is all. Without entrenched leaders, there could be no chain of command. The people of each locality, although communicating with each other through their committee of correspondence, received no orders from a central authority. They did develop some shared motives, most notably forcing officials to recant while passing through the ranks, hats in hand, but the local groups operated without any coordinating body to plot a strategy or plan the various confrontations. The Massachusetts Revolution of 1774 was not only decentralized but thoroughly ubiquitous, both temporarily and geographically. It lacked concrete definition. It simply erupted everywhere and whenever. It has been as confusing, perhaps, to students of history as it was to Governor Gage, who had no idea how to respond. Again, the very strength of this revolution contributed to its obscurity. A ubiquitous uprising might be harder to contain than a tidy one, but is also more difficult to perceive. In 1774, 19 of every 20 people in Massachusetts lived outside of Boston, yet all print information flowed through urban channels. Most court closures were given but brief play in the papers, nor were they much discussed by prolific revolutionary writers like John and Samuel Adams, who were not present at any of the uprisings. Partly because source material is so skewed, a sort of urban chauvinism had left its mark on the telling of the American Revolution. This has led to a serious misreading of the historical process. The standard textbook narrative goes something like this. To punish Bostonians for the Tea Party, the British government passed the coercive acts known in America as the Intolerable Acts. The most important of these, the Boston Port Act, was meant to isolate Boston by shutting off all commerce, but it had the reverse effect. People outside of town responded by coming to the aid of their beleaguered compatriots. The American Revolution thereby sounds a philanthropic note. Colonists outside of Boston acted from the goodness of their hearts, but it was the Massachusetts Government Act, not the Boston Port Act, which led common people throughout the colony to take decisive actions. Politically disempowered and fearful of economic ruin, the patriots of rural Massachusetts risked their all not just to help their neighbors, but to help themselves. The other colonies, understanding that Massachusetts was already in a state of rebellion, felt compelled to take sides. If Britain could disenfranchise the people of Massachusetts, none of the colonies was safe. Losing their franchise, the power of their vote, was the catalyst that drove ordinary people to rebel. This does not conform neatly to some notions of revolution. The Massachusetts farmers who overthrew British rule were not poor peasants exploited by greedy landlords, but freeholders scared of losing their modest holdings. People do not have to be reduced to great depths of poverty before they rebel. The common farmers of Massachusetts staged a preemptive revolution. They resisted oppression before, not after being driven into tendency. The middle-class nature of the Revolution of 1774 has put us off the scent. So has the absence of bloodshed. When the British staged their counter-revolutionary attack on Lexington and Concord, people lost their lives. That was the beginning of what became known as the Revolutionary War. But the actual revolution which triggered this military offensive succeeded without a body count. Unfortunately, the telling of history often requires one. At Lexington, professional British soldiers fired at a handful of local farmers. This act of violence, allegedly perpetrated by the enemy, gave the Americans the moral high ground and helped mobilize support. The story has been repeated so often that it has effectively muffled the revolution of the preceding year. Leaderless, ubiquitous, and bloodless, the first transfer of political authority from the British to the Americans has not been able to compete. It was not lacking as a revolution, it only lacked an audience to comprehend and appreciate it. In January 1775, Lord Dartmouth found it difficult to believe that Governor Gage is lost out to a tumultuous rabble, without any appearance of general concert, or without any head to advise, or leader to conduct. Dartmouth failed to comprehend the power of the people to act in their own behalf, and even today the revelation that ordinary people, without any head to advise, toppled the British-controlled government in Massachusetts engenders blank, incredulous stares. In truth, there should be nothing so startling about the Revolution of 1774. It was simply a matter of people seizing control of their own political destiny. Surely we need not look incredulously at that. And I hope people will read this book and get back to me on it, and we could create a group to discuss this, because this might give us a good idea about a revolution towards those crooks that want to take over everything and destroy our government, as it is supposed to be by we, the people. Yeah, I'll have a great week.